right, you're straight in and ready to go.
Okay, call the meeting of the Port and Advisory Commerce Board to order December 4th. And Wayne, would you lead us on the pledge?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So, we'll call the roll.
Okay, roll call for today's meeting. Scudder?
Here.
Regis?
Here.
Atwood?
Here.
Smith is excused. Groom? Here. And Chair Jaffa.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. So, we'll open for citizen comments or from the audience. We have some items that we're going to talk about that you may be interested in commenting on. Anyone at this point? Please.
They're supposed to be silent. They're supposed to be
Would
silent.
you just give us your name and inside the outside of the city, please, Phil?
Phil Palooza, inside city limits. Oh, what I'm passing out is a little spreadsheet that I've been playing with in terms of my heat pump incentives that I'm looking for. And really all I was trying to do is figure out, there's two things that go on. You know, we have to get people to invest in a heat pump, which is, you know, forking out several $1,000s, even with the rebates. So they have to get some kind of return on that. And we also have to look at what it costs to operate compared to their existing system. So this little model lets me just kind of play around with different costs for installation and savings. And my goal was to try to come up with, you know, a reasonable return on somebody's investment, you know, that 5 to 7 year payback. You guys are all consumers. What does it take for you to let go of a couple $1,000s? What kind of return would you want to have on some energy savings investment that would encourage you to spend your hard-earned money to get there? And then we have to look at longer term costs. So I just want to let you know I've been playing around with all of that I didn't just pick 6-cent incentive rate for heat pumps just out of thin air. I was trying to come up with something that would get us in that ballpark to encourage people to take advantage of the rebate programs that are coming. And I guess one thing we didn't talk about last time was really the big picture. You know, how many gallons of oil do we use in Seward for space heating? What is the potential of displacing oil? I don't know. Is it 2 million? Is it 4 million gallons a year between small and big and medium? You know, if I just looked at displacing 1 million gallons of heating oil with a bunch of heat pumps, both small and large, and it takes 14 kilowatts of electricity to displace 1 gallon of oil, that's 14 million kilowatts of electricity that will need to be sold within the community in a year. Well, even at my discounted rate for the utilities, they're still making 9-cent profit. Well, that's over $1 million a year profit to the local utility by supplying that power at that lower rate. Obviously, as we increase them, we're going to be replacing some old poles and old transformers, I assume, in neighborhoods. So it's not all gravy, but it sure is mostly gravy to the city. So, and I guess the one point I've always brought up is Homer Electric made a deal with Marathon Oil a number of years ago, and they're basically just making 2 cents a kilowatt over their cost of generation and transmission, because Marathon says, we can make our own power. We don't need your power. But at that rate, Marathon said, okay, I'll give you 2 cents. So that's just kind of some of the economics that go on that we get to play with down the road. Thank you.
Anyone else? I see we have a council member that's joined us. Okay. So the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, you have the minutes from the November 6th meeting in your packet, and I would need a motion to approve.
I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
The motion is made and seconded. Call for the vote.
Voting on approval of agenda and consent agenda. Groom, oh, sorry, excused. Scudder,
Yes.
Regis,
Yes.
Atwood,
Yes.
and Chair Joppa.
Yes.
Okay. But the approval has been approved.
So I would just mention the process to everyone. The minutes have now been approved, and the clerk had just earlier today given me the minutes from the previous meeting that we approved for signature. So our process is to review the previous meeting's minutes, and then as soon as possible after that, sign them, and then they go on the permanent record. Okay. Is there, I asked a question of the clerk, is there a draft that's posted on the website, or does it not go on the website at all until it's been approved?
I believe it does not go on the legislative history until you sign it, because the copy that you sign is what's being scanned into legislative history.
The version in your packet has a draft watermark because it is pending your approval.
So they get to see it in the packet when it comes on. So the
Okay.
community gets to see it through the packet.
The watermark would be, make it clearly interim. No. Okay, no resolutions, other items, special presentations. We have the city manager's report, and I asked Ashley if you would like to comment on that. It's a well-presented document.
Sure, I'll give some highlights and then I'm going to turn it over to the clerk to speak to his laydown. If you came out for the holiday tree lighting, it was a great success and a lot of fun. A lot of activities that were well attended at the library, and the Grinch and Santa both made an appearance, so that was fun. Parking enforcement is in full effect on 3rd, 4th, and 5th Avenues, so pay attention to the signs to tell you which side of the street you can park on. There's no snow right now, but they're still giving tickets because it's winter, so that's happening. In the harbor, I'm going to let Tony speak to it. The Northeast Harbor project has scheduled to close on December 6th, but they changed the date to the 17th. Is that right?
That is correct. We just had some, with the holiday right in the middle, we had several requests to extend that out. So now the new close date is on the 17th.
What does that mean, close?
To get your proposal in for that project.
And then you're probably full staff now with a
We are
harbor
full
tree
staffed.
worker?
Yes.
Great. And then, yeah, I would say lots of stuff going on at Parks and Rec, and yeah, I'll just let you guys absorb the rest of that, and then I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Ashley. So you each have a laydown next to your council packet. It's the document with the yellow highlights. And Chair Joppa, if I may have just about 5 minutes, I could walk the board through
Please.
what this is exactly. So this is a sneak peek at an ordinance that I'm working on. I'm kind of touching up all the boards and commissions and city code. And so I'm basically giving you an early look at this to get feedback from the board. So if we could go through just the first 2 pages, and I'll give you a brief overview of the yellow highlights. The first one is a better definition of Seward and surrounding areas. The next one is about how council votes to make the appointments for PATCAB. Just trying to think of other scenarios where there could be, like, say 3 applicants and the vote is split with like one person getting 3 votes and then the other 2 getting 2 votes, and no one gets that 4-vote threshold. And then a new requirement would be 1 board member shall reside inside Seward city limits. And on page 2, just touches up the staff assistants to the board and kind of divvies up the duties a little more clearly between the harbor, the city manager's office, and the clerk's office. Under meetings and quorum, it gives PACCAB a mechanism to call for a special meeting or additional work sessions. Before there wasn't really a clear way for the board to do so. And then the structure of the voting would be changed to match council, where 4 affirmative votes are required for any action rather than a majority of the board members present. Currently, you could pass a resolution by a vote of 3-1, for example, or 3-2, which is different from council, and I'd just like to see everything be the same. And no changes on page 3. So if you are able to review that as homework, we can talk more about it in January, or feel free to give me feedback. Oh, and I feel like I missed a big one here. Go back to meetings and quorum. There are no yellow highlights, but we were looking to delete the summer hiatus, so June, July, and August would be stricken. And then there would only be 1 meeting per month. So it would be all year round, 12 meetings rather than 2 meetings a month, but not during the summer. So yeah, any feedback or comments on that would be greatly appreciated. I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Well, thank you, Chris. Do you want some comments now, or do you want to reserve this for an agenda item?
We could do both, if you
Okay.
wanted to give me some initial feedback
Okay.
now. And
There some comments from the,
She had it in her purse.
okay, Melissa?
I just had a question on the board meetings, first and third Wednesdays, and you crossed out first. Isn't one of those just a work session, though? It's not an actual meeting? So we have a work session, and then we have a board meeting?
yeah, we were looking to just make 1 meeting per month, so it would most likely be just a regular meeting on the 3rd Wednesday, and then you could call for additional work sessions if needed.
We're gonna read-
That's where I was going, so like on the meeting day, we can have a work session before the meeting, like the council does. I'm okay with that, if we have one right before our meeting. That way, if we have anything then, we can, so. I agree to the 1 meeting a month, but we can put in a work session prior to a meeting, I like that.
And I chose the 3rd Wednesday over the 1st Wednesday just because the first week of each month is kind of loaded with like the P&Z meetings on Tuesday, so that would sort of spread the workload out a little bit for staff.
So as you drafted, if I might, as you drafted it, the deletions are the shaded, lined out, and the new language is in the yellow highlights.
Correct.
That's the code. Okay. Okay. Well, this is not the first revision to this, to the code I've seen at PACCAB, and I'm glad to see that a longtime Sewardite is involved in this rewrite. And I appreciate the definition of Turn Lake as East Peninsula, although some would argue that Summit Lake. I will reserve my comments. I think it's always good to get into the code, because it does sometimes expire in time.
I just have one other question.
Sure.
If we're going to talk about this in January, I mean, this is going to take place starting in January theoretically, correct?
It would be an ordinance that would be introduced to council and then approved or enacted at the next council meeting, so it's a bit of a process.
Okay, so it's not immediate then, okay.
I just have one
Yeah, sure.
general question. So, Chris, do you envision a sort of staggering of the meetings in order to help facilitate preparation? I'm thinking of your comment about the front end of, front end of the month, the first Wednesday. I would imagine there are packet preparations for various bodies.
Well, P&Z meets on the first Tuesday of each month, and then PACCAB is always the Wednesday, the very next day.
Yeah.
So by having PACCAB be the 3rd Wednesday, it would kind of spread out the workload a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
P&Z is only once a month?
By code, they're once a month. They currently are meeting twice a month.
With
Alternating
work
between
sessions?
a work session and a regular meeting.
Well, the only real comment I have at this point, if you're looking for comments, is that how to call a special meeting. I think that's, in the past, we had a practice of having, two board members, or the city manager and the chairman, something other than just administration calling a special meeting, that the board as a group could have more influence in that. So that would be my only, in the short read that I've had of it. Okay. Anything else? And again, I think this is more than just an English lesson, which is what we got the last time. So, see. So, okay, we had a harbor report, so we would get the railroad report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so the railroad report is in the packet. I just want to note that we've had a few changes since I submitted this report. We've got a substantial cargo vessel coming. The schedule is now shifted to the 12th of the month, this month, and then we've had some more changes to our cruise ship schedule, and I assume we'll probably have a few more. We're now looking at 65 ships and a total of 87 ship days, and we'll see what it looks like going forward. The primary change was we had the Explorer with 11 dockings, and that vessel's repositioning to Whittier, which we were anticipating. One thing I wanted to mention, and perhaps the clerk was going to mention this anyway, there will be a January 15 project presentation. So the sewer company, the Alaska Railroad, will do a PowerPoint and speak to the cruise dock replacement, the terminal building project, also the freight dock expansion, and the shore power project. So there's a lot going on there. And again, that's going to be on the 15th of January. And I don't have anything else.
And that's to this board?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any questions on the railroad activity? I had a question, Dwayne, I don't know if you, are you aware of the 557 locomotive project restoration?
Individual locomotive projects, not so much, but
Well, it's nearing its run on the railroad. And it's currently, hopefully, just going to go, well, they hope to go to Girdwood, but I'd sure like to see it come all the way to Seward. And if you haven't, if any of you don't know about the 557, I think you can Google a 557 and Wasilla, and it's been a 5-year project to restore an old Alaska Railroad engine, steam engine. Okay. We don't have a commerce report, but I would ask staff if they could just give us an overview, because the council does receive a report from the chamber, and there was discussion at one of our meetings recently about supporting a split in the head tax, and I think council had some action on that. Can you bring us up to date on that?
In the head tax or the bed tax?
The bed tax. Head tax, bed tax.
I don't know if I'm qualified to speak to that.
I could probably speak a little bit to that.
Okay.
Right now, the Chamber Board of Directors is meeting, or they did meet with city administration, the city manager and assistant city manager earlier this week to discuss some of the concerns by the council about the contract with the Chamber of Commerce. So right now, the board and the director are rewriting that contract and updating costs to present back to city administration to review, and then possibly bring back to council to see what can be agreed upon as far as what kind of funding the chamber will get from the city. So there has been no real progress at this point, other than talking back and forth on what they want and what the chamber can provide.
Talking is progress. And I assume that the bed tax increase, was that implemented? Or is that still under discussion?
No, that was failed.
That failed? Okay. Okay, so this, the chamber contract will be completely separate probably from that.
The chamber contract is going to be a contract between the chamber and the city on what services the chamber will provide and what kind of funding they're going to get for those services. So the chamber has traditionally had what they call a marketing contract, and I don't know how formalized the contract was, but the chamber was the marketing arm of the city, so they were contracted to do all the marketing for the city of Seward and have been since the early 90s. And the amount of money that the chamber has received was based on the bed tax, and it was passed in a resolution a number of years ago to fund at 2% of the bed tax amount. And as that bed tax has increased, there's been concerns brought to council by community members and by council members about the amount of money that the chamber is receiving. And so what the chamber is now doing is basically quantifying what they do and putting those costs to show where that money's going and why they are asking for the amount of money that they're asking for, so that we can try to move forward with getting the funding to run the Chamber of Commerce and the Visitor Center and the visitors management services that they offer.
Board Member Regis?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that because where they were at, they're at a set amount right now for passed into the budget. Well, the budget's going to go to council here next week.
That's the third reading?
Yeah, so there'll be, if the council approves it, then I imagine they're under a set rate. I think it was 300,000 if I remember right. So.
And the chamber's requesting to have an
More.
amendment to that budget to hopefully increase that
That'll be
amount.
at the next council meeting, but it's like,
So it'll be part of the budget, I believe, that's presented to council.
So as a matter of procedure, we used to get the chamber report at this level, at this board meeting. Is that not going to be anymore?
We just didn't hear from
Okay.
Sam, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the explanation of that. So we have a presentation of comprehensive plan surveys and community development director. And if you can sign in, please.
My name's Daniel Munich. I'm the director of the Community Development Office outside city limits, and here to present with me is...
I'm Courtney Bringhurst, the planner for community development.
And so this, the city's in the process of updating its comprehensive plan, and we're in the public engagement part of that update. And so the purpose of these meetings is we're attending all the commission meetings, all the community organization meetings that we can to really help spread the word about the process. Specifically, there's 4 surveys that we're looking for the public to take part in, and then so that this presentation will kind of focus on what a comprehensive plan is, why it's important, and then this is how you can help us spread the word on it. Due to our time limit, I'm just kind of skim over this slide real quick. It just kind of talks about our functional areas of our office, and so in these presentations, a lot of people don't know what community development does, and so if any commissioners or members of the public that are listening want to ask us or learn about us, feel free. We're on the 2nd floor of City Hall. We're happy to talk about what our office does. But that first part, the advocate for healthy community and economic growth, we play a role in some of the larger community plans with the city, including the municipal lands inventory management plan, and then specifically the comprehensive plan, which we'll focus the rest of the presentation on.
So a comprehensive plan is essentially a plan that focuses on what the community of Seward wants to see for the future of the city. So it's important to know that this plan isn't the city manager's plan for the city of Seward. This isn't city staff's plan or community development's plan. This is the community's plan. The plan will be built around what the community tells us they want for Seward's future. So that's part of the purpose for the surveys, to initially get more broad thoughts from the community of what they like, what they don't like, what could be improved. And then later in the process, we'll have multiple town hall meetings where we can flush out more of these topics and get specific goals and policies for the plan. So the green boxes kind of highlight, what the plan can do for our community. If we can seek grants and other forms of funding, it helps to inform decisions that city council makes, that planning and zoning makes, that even Port and Commerce, PACAB make. The plan helps us update ordinances and policies that, maybe we have policies in place right now that aren't helping us get to the future that we want to see. And so this plan can guide those policy updates. And then, of course, the engagement with the public is an important piece of this plan. And we're looking in the future to have this plan be more of a living document rather than the 10-year plans that have historically been the standard that we followed. And so making it more of a living document will help us to engage more regularly with the public to see, okay, are we making progress in this plan? Has this been actionable versus just something that's been on a shelf and referenced every once in a while in a resolution for city council or planning and zoning?
So what does a comprehensive plan cover? So we did a lot of research of other comprehensive plans within the state, outside of the state. All of them have some sort of visionary piece to it, and so and they all have different focus areas. And in our research, we really like the plans that focused on looking at their respectable towns as a place, as a people, as an economy. And so we have 4 surveys we put together that relate to those 3 areas plus a vision survey. And so that vision survey really is like what you like, what you don't like about Seward, where you kind of hope Seward will be in the future. And then those focus areas, if you think about Seward as a people, there's a lot of questions in there about quality of life, and I'm assuming we'll get a lot of feedback about, for example, the housing issues in town, maybe child care. If you focus on Seward as a place, that gets into like our land use and capital improvements, and so a lot of questions related to that. And then if you think about Seward as an economy, I think that's a big one. And like Courtney mentioned, we want people of this town to really draft this document. We feel as ourselves as more the facilitators. However, I do think it's important to have a framework for that. And I think the framework, especially in regards to its economy, is looking at Seward used to be this blue collar year-round town that the pendulum swung all the way to the summer season tourist town. And there's, I think, a big desire to find what's that middle ground where Seward can continue to thrive as a year-round vibrant community while benefiting from that economic windfall of that summer visitor season. So what does that look like? And I think that survey will give us some good feedback from the community of where that pendulum lands with the community. Once we get that feedback, we're going to keep these surveys open, I think, till May-ish, because we do want to capture some of the seasonal crew that considers Seward home that might take off in the winter, because we just want to get that feedback as well. But we're able to start analyzing the data as soon as the surveys come in, so we've received plenty of responses already. And so I think, again, in the spring, like Courtney mentioned, we can do some targeted town halls that bring some of that data, because the surveys, you can't get too specific, otherwise you're going to have 2-hour-long survey responses, which means no one's filling them out. So you kind of have to be general enough to get some broad answers, and then use these targeted town halls or going back to groups like this to kind of flush out some of the more specifics. And the goals would be to have some overarching goals that are developed based on that feedback. What are some policies that we can develop based on those goals, and then specifically what are specific action steps or implementation strategies to achieve those goals.
So the comprehensive plan is ideally something that everybody within the community can use. So individual residents or members of organizations within the community can use the plan to determine how funding that their organization develops could be used for specific goals and implementation strategies that the community has highlighted within the plan. Or business owners and developers can look at the plan to see, okay, what does the community say they need for housing or businesses in the economy, and where are people saying they want development to occur? And then, of course, at the city council and planning and zoning level and city staff, the plan is used to provide recommendations for policy changes or zoning changes or new regulations.
And so, yeah, this is just kind of the update process. We're kind of that top stage, the public engagement piece. And then after that stage is over, we can start to draft a plan, which will then go back out to the community to review. And then we'll have a final plan, which will eventually, at the end game, get approved by the city council. And but just kind of speaking to that public engagement piece, like we're the administrative arm for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I don't know if you all get some of the feedback that we do with this commission, but oftentimes, you know, an important topic will come up in front of them, and 2 weeks later, you know, we'll get a member of the community that's like, well, I didn't know about it, and I wish the city would do a better job of marketing these types of meetings or topics that are going on. And so we definitely have to become better marketing experts within the city, especially we get a lot of feedback, and I'm sure we'll get feedback about the lack of a newspaper now in town, which plays a role in that. But with this being such an important document, like I don't want to hear that feedback from the public, which is why we're spending a lot of time reaching out to the community to make sure at least people have heard about it. So we've sent out postcards to everyone that has a PO box. We've done some initial kickoff events. We're going to every single community organization that we can think of that will have us in. And so if any of you or members of the public are listening, are part of an organization that we haven't reached out to yet, feel free to get in touch with us, because we'd love to get on your agenda. But yeah, the goal right now is just to let the public know about this plan and the surveys, and try and get as much feedback as we can on them. And so the surveys, I'm not sure if you guys have access to the presentation, but if not, we can send it to you. There's a QR code that has the surveys that you're able to send out to people in your circles, as well as there is a comprehensive plan website link attached to our website on the city's website under community developments. And so, yeah, I've got 40 seconds.
Really?
So,
Just like that?
Yep, that's all you, get your camera out.
From this angle?
Yep.
Just point it right in.
Okay, well, I'm distracted here, but
I'll put a plug in, Chair Jaffa, since you made that comment about the QR code, or we will be going to the Legion tonight at 5:30 to 6:30 to assist anybody who would like to take the surveys but do not particularly like technology. So we will have computers there and can assist. We will also be at the Senior Center this Friday at 12:15.
okay, so let's see here.
You can do it.
There'll be, will you present that to the clerk? Maybe your presentation, so we can get it by email too. I'm still learning this, I know.
So that QR code's linked to a website, right?
City of Seward website.
Okay, you just go to
Right,
the
because
City of Seward.
it'll take you to the comprehensive plan website, because there are those 4 surveys. So the QR code can't take you right to the survey, since there are those 4 separate ones, but it'll take you to the website. Just do a little scroll down and they'll see the link to the 4 surveys.
Board Member Regis?
So there was talk a while back about combining the strategic plan with the comp plan. Is that still the thing, or are you still 2 separate documents?
That's a good question. That, like, I had kind of a brief conversation with Jason about it. Historically, like, comprehensive plans have been like these 10-year documents, and I think the current one was drafted around 2017. And so it still was like 3 years before the 2020 to 2030 timeframe. Then COVID hit, and so there's a whole lot of reasons that we're kind of updating this ahead of schedule. But one part, it was just feedback from that old plan, was that intertwined was like, we talked about in the presentation, we want to get these overarching goals, and then from that policies, and then the action steps. And I think that's the way it should be organized, but in the current plan, you've got them all kind of together and intermingled. But if we do get enough good feedback that we can have some really solid implementation strategies and action steps, that would be similar to a strategic plan, which I don't think we've had a conversation to say definitely that we would combine it, but I think there could potentially be an avenue for that.
Well,
So I like the idea of maybe a more frequent cycle for updating the comprehensive plan. I've seen the past two come together, and I don't want to disparage any consultants, but you know, it's this decade ramp up, and then we have an outside entity tell us a lot about ourselves, and I think we're capable of doing that. And I gathering that you're thinking of doing more in-house work on the document itself.
Yeah, so we're kind of, we did speak to some people who've kind of delved into this, because this is new for us and it is a big undertaking. We're kind of viewing it in stages. So right now, the public engagement phase, like we feel pretty good about knowing the community, knowing who to reach out to, get the surveys filled out. We did get some feedback that it might be good, once we start to analyze the data, have the third party maybe facilitate the town hall meetings, because they'd have like an unbiased approach to that, but we would be the ones supplying them the data that we've kind of already analyzed. They'd just be more facilitating the process. Once we've kind of analyzed the data and we get into like the drafting stage, that's going to be the next kind of the decision is, does our office, because we're only 2 people in our admin, do we have the bandwidth to like really do that work when, you know, we've got a lot of other stuff going on. So, but you know, Homer recently redid theirs, and it was a I think $600,000 project for their comprehensive plan. Since the city's not even halfway through its current one, yeah, the city's not looking to invest that much to outside entities to come in. We're looking to do as much as we can in-house, but we're going to kind of take it a piece at a time and go from there.
No.
I was just curious about the survey. I think it's great that there's a survey going out there to the community. My first question, is that available? I mean, assuming it's available to anybody, because you can go to the website and fill it out, right? It's anonymous. My second question is, when you compile those results, what are you, other than using them for your comprehensive plan, are those going to be available to the public to review? You know, are they going to be combined and put out there as a document for other organizations who might be trying to make plans about what the community wants, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'd be willing to share that information to anyone who would find relevance to the data, what that looks like in turn. Like, I know some plans that we looked at have like their plan, and they have a separate document that's like their executive summary that kind of goes through what their questions were, and these were the percentage for the answers. And so that's more formatting, I guess, that we'll kind of get to that point and say, what do we want to cover? But yeah, we want to be definitely as transparent as possible with the results of the surveys. So.
And then those results will be compiled formally for the town hall meeting discussions. But yeah, if any organization or individual wanted, you know, a copy of the data or that sort of thing, we can certainly supply that.
I got a couple ones. So, simplest question first would be, what's your target date for getting this complete? 2025? Or
yeah,
or
it's a good question. It's probably a 2-year project for sure. And so public engagement through the winter. Summer is kind of when we get busy with a lot of people doing projects. We can start to like look at what will the drafting process look like, and then yeah, depends how much we want to take that on in-house. Could potentially be next winter we're drafting.
So maybe the spring of 26.
Yeah.
Okay. I will say that I've been involved with comprehensive plans in a couple different areas. The Moose Pass comprehensive plan, the first one that I dealt with was in 1993, and we have used that to support activities both with state and federal agencies. So it's a very useful document, not just to gather information to guide policy, but to protect or promote community values. So it's a very important document. I do remember, I think the assistant city manager talked a little bit about the strategic plan implementation of the results of the comprehensive plan. And joining them makes sense where it does, but as you had them divided into 4 categories, I believe, with implementation or whatever you call it, as one of those categories, that's that's the last part of the collecting the data and using it. 2 questions. In the 93 comp plan that Moose Pass did, we collected it through survey, public comments. We had almost 100 responses, and those were published and signed and published. But the more recent addition by borough recommendation were those surveys were private. So my question, and I'm not sure this is a follow-up to what Board Member Sutter said, but will the public have an opportunity to present their views publicly?
So that's kind of what we view the town halls to be in this upcoming spring. Right now we can go in and print off all the data that we've gotten from the surveys that have been recorded so far. And so when we do these town halls, the idea would be to present the already compiled information, bring those to the town halls, do kind of a basic overview at first of like, hey, this is the responses we've gotten from the community, and we'll have that third-party facilitator hopefully kind of help us, break us up into stages based on some general, goals we could possibly see from those responses, and then get more specific information from the residents. Because at that point, like the data we're going to get from the surveys, again, is going to be more general. What we get from going back to groups like this in the spring, doing those town halls, will be we'll have more specific information, and that should all be public record. That would be available for the public. The only discrepancy I can see in that process is because we want to keep the surveys open until May to get some of that seasonal crowd. There will be some additional information from the surveys that who takes the surveys after the town halls. That information won't be in that initial kind of blast to the community, but we would incorporate that over time to make sure that it is available.
Well, the online surveys, what I've seen is they do allow you to create boxes or categories with broad kind of you're sort of averaging all those comments, and public comments you can put them, if they're actually the letters, you can put them in a box. This guy likes a swing set, this guy wants whale watching. But the last question, and I think you answered it, but how the city can administrate a town hall. And it sounds like the third party, like the Foraker Group or somebody like that, would be the ones who would actually call the town hall for the city. Is that how that works?
They would facilitate the town hall. We would do a big part of the marketing for that, of making sure we're getting the word out to the community. But then, the actual facilitation of those town halls, we've been told by a number of people that would be best to have a third party do those.
Board Member Regis?
So when we did the 2020 comp plan, we were at the library for a couple meetings, and they had the white paper flipboards out, and they had the different articles on there, and they were just somebody there facilitating where they were going with everything. I know all their questions, they would write them down, and that's where we kind of got the plan that we have now. But it was good. We actually had, we had like 20, maybe 30 people. I think Dwayne was there, because I think you ran it, if I remember right.
Yeah, so I was involved with the last plan. Getting, decisions are made by the people who show up, when you have a forum like that. And so what would I encourage you to do? I don't know, give away a lot of pizza, give people, I'm being sarcastic, but it's like that. Get people to show up and then also just going to, the information that you're going to receive. If you're on a topic, that's one thing. If you have, open-ended questioning, that's that's something else entirely to process. So, anyway. One thing that just sort of occurred to me, I assume that the land use plan is going to figure prominently in this review and assessment of the document. And I guess you could, Daniel, maybe speak to that a little bit. It's, the land use plan by extension can, of course, affect our zoning map. And anyway, I don't know if you're going to be seeking input on that as part of this.
Yeah, it certainly will be a part. It's not part of the surveys, but when we get to the town hall phase, we'll be getting input on that land use plan, and if there are changes that people want to make to that future land use map or what they want, because there have already been changes in our current zoning map that are different than the future land use map that was
Right.
developed with the 2020 plan, so there are some things that need to be looked at and evaluated again there.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for coming and presenting to us. I think there's a correlation or almost an overlap between some of the goals of community development and this board. And the well-being and quality of life is one of our codified mission statements. So I'd invite you back to use this board as this meetings as a public airing, or we can more generate more response and get people in if you like. I don't think we want to replace what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing. So.
No, we've kind of thrown around the idea of doing the town halls, bringing the data to those meetings, but, it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring that information back to a group like this and get feedback from the different targeted community organizations that we are able to get in touch with, so.
I would take one exception. I think Seward's still a blue-collar town.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, are you getting many people doing the surveys? Are you seeing a good number of people filling those out?
Yeah, so the surveys have been out just a little over a month now. We have 180 responses so far. So.
Good.
Good. I just like one comment. I like your outreach. I think you guys are doing a good job. And there's been a lot of mention here of newspapers, and frankly, municipalities used to get a lot of cover from just doing legal advertising and saying, "Oh yeah, we put it out there, sure," and nobody responded. So anyway, kudos to you guys for doing the work, on the ground. So thanks.
Yeah, in today's political environment, it's like I want to do everything we can to make the community feel like they are the authors of this document, not us. I don't want that responsibility. It's the people's document. So that's a big part of it, is just the outreach. So anything you all can do in your circles of influence, feel free to spread the word. We appreciate it.
I don't think the Seward has been timid about expressing their views on things. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So back on the agenda, we have unfinished business, none. Resolutions, none. Other new business. We discussed the rebates and incentive programs for alternative energy. At our last work session, we did receive the block rate proposal that Phil drafted, and I think we did have Taylor here at the meeting briefly to talk about it a little bit. So we want to go back into it a little bit. You have some more information that Phil gave us today. And the whole thing, we talked a little bit about the technology last time, and with one of the installers, at least one here, it was determined that economics may be the driver of this. Feeling good about the environment and all the rest that goes with it is great, but people need to understand that this is going to benefit them somehow. Long-range idea about, it's going to be good for the environment, so the fishing will improve again and things like that. That's too far out there. It's how I'm going to feed my family and how I'm going to pay my electric bill or my heating bill. a heating bill. So it really comes back to how the city could impact this rate structure to benefit this program. And I guess anybody from last meeting have questions about that. I mean, there's got to be a yin and yang. There's never all positive. So you mentioned that with increased load, there has to be not only maintenance, but there may have to be some more build out. So maybe if we could open this for discussion, can we do that? Okay. So we have two of the people that really have some of the answers for us, and I guess the first question I would have is, how much growth can the current infrastructure accept? Forget rates at this point, the physical wires, conductors, transformers, all that stuff. How much increase could the current system stand? Is that an easy answer? Is there an easy answer?
It's definitely not an easy answer.
Real quick, I think you need to ask the clerk to open up for discussion with the public.
Yeah. So, what's the process?
Ask the clerk to open.
Okay, I asked the clerk to open this up. I'll open the discussion to the public.
Chair Jaffa, would you like them to approach the citizen comment table or remain seated?
Yeah, actually, and Taylor's not really a city employee, he's a contractor, but he's working for the city. So I'm not sure if that's really public, but yeah, if you could, at least we can get it on the microphone. Sorry about that.
All right, thanks for having me. It was interesting, yesterday I had a meeting. So we have a organization called Utilisys out of Canada that they're helping us with some of our billing. So if you call the billing number, you're talking to someone in Canada. It's kind of offsetting, some of that support for the city. But they're actually this very large company that specializes in metering, utility billing, rate studies, all this good stuff. So we have a study that's ongoing right now on upgrading the meters to AMI meters. So it's an advanced metering infrastructure. So in this meeting yesterday, it was basically figuring out what kind of bells and whistles that we're interested in when we're going out to get all these bids from each one of the meter companies. And so we went over all the different rates that were possible. And so in Canada, the East Coast and the Midwest, some of the rates that they are offering is a dual fuel rate. So they're putting a lot of the heat pumps on dual fuel. So if you have like diesel for backup or whatnot, that means that if the smart meters are sensing that you're getting into that demand zone where the utilities end up gonna pay a demand rate, then they can cut you for 4 hours because you have that backup heat. So they offer a discount on dual fuel. They have another one, it's for heat storage. So basically, if they're getting into that demand area and you've got like a Steffes unit, boiler or forced air furnace that has the heat storage in it, they can curtail your, your electric to the boiler or the furnace. There's off-peak, there's time of day EV charging rates, and so I basically just told them let's spec the companies that have all these options available so that when we get to the point where we need some special rates, then it's an option that's on the table for us. But one big thing that comes with the AMI metering is real time, how much use you have or how much load you have on each transformer on your grid. You know exactly how much load you have on each tap that's going through all those copper wires or aluminum wires, and so we could get like a lot of data in from these meters and know exactly where we're at, know exactly when we're hitting demand. So right now the meters read on a 15-minute interval. The AMIs read on a 5-minute interval. Some of these meter companies offer a extra incentive so that as a consumer, if you want to get the text messages whenever your load goes up in your house, or if you've got a furnace that's on the fritz and failing, you can sign up on their their back-end software to create an account and actually see everything that's going on in your home. A lot of different devices in your home operate on different frequencies, so it actually can tell you like what brand of furnace you're running and that your fan's, you know, using extra power or whatnot. But that'll definitely not be something that we'll ever look at the utility level. It's kind of an invasion of privacy, but all these things are possible. And so from my seat in the bleachers, looking at special rates, looking at incentive programs and everything, it'd probably be good to spec out these meters and know how much that's going to cost to upgrade to AMIs just prior to taking that next step. And I'm hoping to have more information back from this study by the end of the year, so we could possibly, you know, talk about this a little bit more in January. Definitely supportive of all these initiatives, whether it's EVs or heat pumps, heat storage devices. I think it's all great, and we're talking about, you know, adding a ton of megawatts to our system with just the cruise ships, you know, getting the shore power. So we're in the process of upgrading the transmission system. We've got plenty of capacity at the Fort Raymond substation. The transformers were actually oversized quite a bit, so the capacity from the sub isn't an issue. It won't be an issue on the transmission, but when we start talking about taps and transformer loading and stuff like that, it would be really great to have the AMI data to kind of see exactly what's going on. So,
Wow.
questions?
Yeah, there will be.
So I know you've been doing this for a while, so just curious on a normal household, has anybody ever hit the demand side in your, if you don't know, that's fine, I'm just curious, on a regular house, I don't know if Phil can answer his, if he ever hit the demand, because he probably doesn't have a demand meter on his house, just on businesses or in Seward,
Right.
so.
Yep, so I'm trying to think of a scenario where they would have a demand meter on their house, but I can get back to you on that one.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't think there is any.
So if I might, the AMI meter installation, if it were determined to be economic or affordable, and I don't know what kind of money we're talking about, the $2 million or?
So, this was back in 2015, but the AMI 1.0 meters were about $400 a pop. And since Seward waited a little longer, now the price has actually come down about 50%. So they're about $2.25, but it really depends on the bells and whistles, what kind of software you want on the back end. Every manufacturer has a different collector system, so you can actually either use cellular signal or Wi-Fi to feed from meter to meter, and then from the meters to the collector. Then you can either send it back cellular or run fiber to it. So basically you don't have to do meter reading anymore, because you just click a button on the computer and it does all your reads for the month. But it's also collecting all this data in real time, and so you can see exactly what everything on your system's doing. So you can actually, on the Landis & Gear system, for example, I had a demo on that, and there's a button you can click and see how many EVs you have on your system. And you can see how many people are, using the heat pumps and have the Steffes units for heat control. I mean, it's just the amount of data that's coming in with this system is really modernizing grids across America.
You read that by consumption, by the amount of kilowatts that's used?
It must have something to do with the like the frequency or something on the charging stations, but because let's say you plug your car into your garage with your 120 volt charger that comes with the car. Like, you're not going to put a special request in, for a load study or anything from the utility to necessarily tell them that you have an EV, but the system's able to figure out that you have an EV in your garage.
By the charging rate, yeah. So, Taylor, in your view, this is an important step towards making policy to adjust rates that could facilitate this block rate issue.
Yep, and you know, adjusting the rates is outside of my wheelhouse.
I understand that.
But, you know, for my seat in the bleachers, if we could get some better data on how we're using our system and how it's loaded and everything, then I could then put that data together for someone else to, you know, come up with a rate study and, you know, make those kind of decisions for the city.
And how long would it take to implement? We just went through a meter change, and there were some demand meter issues around town, and it was protracted. It went through 2 utility managers. How long would it take to implement this once a decision was made?
So it kind of, I mean, just taking logistics out of it and, you know, getting a contractor lined up to change all the meters and stuff, but it'd probably take about 2 weeks.
Oh, okay, so that's not a delay issue, yeah. Yeah. The biggest thing would be decide to move forward. So with the understanding that this kind of meter collects data, where is it collected to?
So you can either have an on-site server or you can basically rent a cloud server from each one of these companies that has like, you know, a cybersecurity secured server offsite. And so my recommendation would always be the offsite, because then you're not dealing with all the local cybersecurity stuff. But that's another thing, that it's just a subscription versus if you want to buy the equipment to have it in the building.
And this is a dumb question, maybe it's not, if you understand my thinking, but it makes it a dumb question. If that cloud server went down, that data couldn't be collected, it wouldn't affect the operation of that meter at all. We'd still be able to function as a city just without collecting that information.
Right, I mean, they have multiple backups and, you know, they're protected against failure, they're protected against hacking. So just for an example, before coming back up to Alaska, I was working for Xcel Energy. It's got, it's an IOU throughout 7 states, and all their meter data is stored on the cloud through Itron.
Oh. So this is a well-established technology?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Melissa?
And I'm just gonna say I'm very ignorant on all of this, but the new meters that we had put in a few years ago, those don't have the capabilities that you're talking about with this AMI. I mean, what can the meters that we have now do? They just count our kilowatts?
Yep, so they basically act like a original meter, except for they'll send out a RF signal. And so instead of having someone walk up to each house every month to read the meters, you just drive by them, and we have a handheld that picks up that signal.
So that's the only thing that they're doing.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would say is the city of Seward got a really good deal on the current meters. So they're actually used meters from Kodiak. And so, like, it's really good technology, you know, 25, 30 years ago. But right around 2010, 2008 to 2010, the AMI 1.0 started coming out. But as now we're having a lot of, you know, solar on systems, different kind of battery storage in people's garages. Like if they get the Tesla wall batteries, you got electric vehicles and all these things. So now they came out with the AMI 2.0 that's basically modernizing the 1.0 to account for all these other factors that you can have. So like one way that I believe I was reading it was California. So if you have the EV charging in your garage, or you have the wall batteries, you can sign up for a discount rate on your whole house, where if the utility needs some spin reserve, they can actually drain your batteries that you have just sitting in your garage and pump that power back to the grid to help balance it. In exchange, you're getting, like, you know, half off your electric bill. And so there's all these things that couldn't be done with a metering like what we have, but now that you know, they're coming out with this new technology. It's like almost anything's possible.
So it sounds like, in that system you just described, they're buying the power back at the set-aside cost, or nearly the amount of cost it would cost to have standby equipment to generate electricity.
Yeah, it really depends kind of what state you're in and, you know, what the laws are like, but sometimes you can get like, you know, we have net metering, so if you got the solar panels, we're gonna credit back whatever you put on the grid. In other states, they'll only pay what the generation cost is, so, you know, I'm just throwing this number out, but it'd be like, instead of your 27 cents, it'd be like 6 cents, because that's what they're buying the power for. But it just kind of depends place by place what the tariffs say. But, you know, if we have more information coming in, then we can also, you know, potentially create more incentives in our tariff and, you know, use the energy that we're, you know, providing on the system and bringing in from customers to the most efficient way possible.
So if I might, and I'm not trying to put you into commenting on what rates should be, but your experience with Xcel and in the area, were the decisions for that person to put that Tesla wall-mounted battery economic, or was it some sort of a public policy driven thing?
Depends on the state. So I managed North Dakota. So North Dakota is heavy into subsidizing wind. So there's wind farms wherever you go. Part of my service territory was in Minnesota. Minnesota subsidizes solar and EVs. So we would have a lot of you know, EV charging station installs in Minnesota, and we would have giant farms turning into solar farms everywhere. And so I think it really depends on if it's being subsidized, because the cost of putting wind and solar together is, you know, your cost benefit analysis doesn't normally work out unless you're getting subsidized. If you're, you know, competing with natural gas generation or especially the original nuclear. I mean, we have 3 nuclear power plants in Minnesota that play a big role in that 7 cents a kilowatt hour that you're getting charged for your base rate in the area. And there's a giant coal plant in the middle of North Dakota that, you know, supplies 30% of the power to Minnesota.
This is really interesting. So in North Dakota, any of the wind energy conversion systems, were they used at the residential level, or you're just talking about wind farms and commercial production?
Yep, so there's both. You have a lot of mega farms in North Dakota, and so these mega farms, the farmers, you know, have a lot of money, and so they would often basically build their own wind farm on their farm, and then, you know, the federal government was subsidizing the building of the wind turbines. So we would have like net metering, you know, at that farm for a couple wind turbines that were, you know, up to half a megawatt apiece. Now the more commercial wind turbines are over a megawatt apiece, and, you know, there's fields where you can see them forever. Like there's probably 1,000 of them. Up by, I think it's Rugby, North Dakota, Xcel has, I think, the largest wind farm in North America. And, but, you know, that wind is all balanced by natural gas, and so it kind of goes into the carbon-free discussion. And so, like, Xcel's converting a coal plant in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, back to nuclear. And then that nuclear plant's going to be creating hydrogen to pump up to Fargo for the balancing plant they just built, and in order to balance the wind farms with a carbon-free technology. But I mean, you know, getting back to Seward, there's a lot of cool stuff that we could do, but I think whether we're talking about like maintaining the infrastructure we have or modernizing it, if we do some of these things that brings in more data, like, you know, we're trying to get the GIS system updated so we know exactly, you know, the age of all of our poles, what size of conductors that we have in different neighborhoods, you know, what phase they're on, all that kind of stuff. That leads to better decision making when, you know, we have a smaller budget when you're talking about different utilities. I mean, Seward's a pretty small city, but small budget for the utility as well. We can figure out where that money can be best spent if we have like the good data to back it up. And it's the same thing with, I think, the electric rates and stuff. If we've got really good data coming in from our metering, we can figure out like where we can, push the numbers around a little bit to, maybe create some of these incentives for the different heat options and EV charging, time of day charging and all that good stuff.
Well, I agree with Boardman Ratwood. It's a very interesting discussion. I think the idea of where we can go with renewables it's there, but it sounds like the preliminary steps here would be to collect data that's essential to understand the viability of the community, and that would allow, and when we talk to Phil in a minute, probably that should allow the block rate. One of those problems was, in my mind, was if someone gets a reduced rate for a heat pump, for instance, and then they said, oh, I'm not going to use it, I'm going to use my boiler again. This AMI 1.0, it sounds like it would probably alert the utility to that event. Depending upon how intrusive it is, I don't know, that's another issue, but it sounds like that would solve one of the problems that was in my mind. I want to think that most people that would say, I'm going to use a heat pump would, and they're not going to fib about it, unless something really went wrong, that's what they would do. But the metering would be just kind of a keeping an honest person honest.
Well, and, most places they'll separate the metering, so they'll have a meter that's just for the heat pump or just for the low demand boiler system or whatnot, so that you're not getting that discounted rate for everything else in your house. It's just going directly to whatever you're powering.
Would that take a separate service?
Well, not a separate service to your house, but a separate meter base.
So that's an expensive installation.
Well, I mean, I think, a separate meter base, you're looking at probably about $1,000.
Yeah.
If you set it right next to your current one.
Yeah. Okay.
But, whether you're off-peak, you're on load control, even the EVs that we were installing, the level 2 charging stations in people's garages, they were on their own meter for the time of day. So it is an added expense, but then if you have a separate meter, then the rest of the community isn't thinking that, just because someone's whole house is on a heat pump, that they're just getting a discounted rate for everything.
Right.
There's probably a way to do it where you average out what their regular usage would be, and then, like MEA, for example, I think it's 1,300 kilowatts. When you hit that threshold, then your rate drops by 2 cents for anything over that. So, I mean, that's another option, but there's no way, to know if that power was being used by the heat pump or something else. But, I mean, there's many different options that could be on the table.
Well, you opened up the next topic that I kind of wanted to talk about just a little bit, and that's the benefit to the utility for an increased consumption. If you did increase, say, from 600 kilowatts to 12 or 1,300 kilowatts, that's a double. That person has doubled it, and assuming that the grid or the city net can take care of that increase, I think Phil mentioned in his opening comments about, I remember, 1 million kilowatt hours or something in a year. What would that do to help or hurt the utility? In our condition, our situation where we're buying wholesale power?
Yeah, I mean, so the wholesale power from Chugach isn't going to be discounted at all. So let's say you had a 6 cent discount on just your base rate from the city. We'd have to punch the numbers and see, how many kilowatts would we have to sell on that special rate, and where that gets us. Are we breaking even, or are we having to build out new infrastructure I mean, I would see like the EV market has been, like, it's been a steady, but it's pretty slow growth, so it's easy to keep up with. Except for if you get like an apartment building that wants like 160 level 2 charging stations in it or something, but it's like a one-off. But the EV growth has been slow but steady, and so if the heat pump growth was about the same, I mean, you'd have to do a new load study for anyone that's interested in installing this heat pump at their house. Now, let's say that you've got 4 neighbors on a transformer, and your heat pump is gonna tip that transformer. Well, the transformer is going to have to be changed out, so currently you'd be responsible for paying for the difference of the sizing on the transformer to upgrade it, which gets added to it too. And then depending on how much capacity we have left on the taps, currently everything in town should have plenty of capacity on it, so I'm not as concerned with that. But it's kind of like, you know, how much growth are you talking? Some of the neighborhoods in the lower 48, especially with the EV chargers, have gotten to the point where they're having to put capacitor banks on secondary buses. But there's a lot of unknowns kind of in that question that, you know, we'd have to just kind of study as it went through. But I honestly think that it wouldn't like break the bank with the amount of you know, heat pumps that would probably be installed.
Question?
And I have no authority over rates too, just so everyone's clear on that.
We'd like to have you back as we continue this discussion. And I think you brought an awful lot to us today. I want to keep the conversation in a manageable way, and like I said, it comes back to a great degree of economics. I love the technical concept. I love to talk about it, and yeah, I like the carbon reduction idea, but quite frankly, when we put in our solar panel, it wasn't because of economics for me, but it would have to be for most people. And the same thing with this system. It has to pay off, and I think it can. I haven't heard anything immediate that says it can't. And whether it's 5 years or, you know, life of a heat pump at 7 or 10 years, I mean, this is an economic decision people have to make. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, keep up the good work. So, while we're on the topic, anybody else like to contribute?
Well, I mean, I always have 2 cents worth.
Please take the podium.
Again, Phil with the Inside City Limits. Yeah, smart meters are great. I wish we would have gotten into that instead of getting Kodiak's dumpster meters, but they work, you know. We get the data we need to bill customers and stuff, but I'd hate to be waiting for years to implement some kind of a heat pump program to get smart meters, because we simply don't need smart meters to have heat pumps. The declining block rate I proposed was as simple as I could come up with, because it's simply a billing process where one would, if you have a heat pump and you're in that class, then anything over the 600 kilowatts would get a separate rate. So there's no additional real cost versus putting in meters, which are going to cost money, which somebody's going to have to pay for and get repaid, right? So the incentives got to improve to, if they got to also do metering and someone's got to pay to meter it, and then it's all that's got to get recorded and implemented and stuff, and I just thought that was just not necessary at this point. Certainly when smart meters come in, be something to look at. You know, the big picture to me is, for a utility, do you want to make 9 cents a kilowatt on this extra little market that's out there? Because all of a sudden now the electric world can compete with oil heat. Before we had heat pumps, you know, electric was 2-3 times more of the cost than oil. So it just wasn't even in the in the game, but now it is. So does the electric world want to get into the competitive market and sell more kilowatts and hopefully keep rates down? I think that's a worthwhile question. I don't know. I just see it as a big, huge new market for the electric world and the advantages of being able to use renewables and do all the green stuff. So I just don't know anything else in this town that we could set up a way for lowering heating costs for year-round residents, increase revenues for the utilities, and benefit the climate change issue. I mean, it's a hat trick. And all we got to do is do something. So I love the questions. I'd love to dig in. I've been digging into this for months, and I've got a lot of background information, and I guess I just want to see the ball keep moving. So, I don't know, questions?
I have one I'd just like to get off the table. I think you have expressed an opinion based on your experience, broad experience. Is there a financial incentive for you personally to promote this technology?
I'm retired. I don't work for money anymore. So.
Okay.
The climate, the environmental issue has always been important to me, and to me this is probably the best thing the city of Seward could do if they wanted to claim some greenness about their, world. I mean, I love the storage capacities, the management we can be doing. Those 400 or so heat pumps that are going up in Northwest Alaska, the goal is for the utilities to monitor and manage those. So when they start reaching peaks and when their windmills aren't putting out the power, that they'll actually be able to turn those things on or off and reduce them so they can manage their overalls. Those are little tiny communities, so a couple 100 kilowatts is big time, but yeah, no financial benefit.
Well, no, I want to get it off the table because I've frankly been asked. And you realize those communities you're talking about in the Northwest are a very different social structure than what we have in Seward, as far as monitoring and who knows who else is doing this.
Right. No, but the goal is to be able to use those as for the utility to manage their power. And
so your view is that the block rate could incentivize, and we're clearly talking about the two different things between rebates for installation, which has to be an individual issue. If people are not taking advantage of it in an individual way, it's not happening. I don't know of any public program that's promoting that.
Promoting?
Well, I take it back. The federal government is promoting it for coastal areas, but it's still got to be individual applicants. It's not through a utility system or anything like that.
Right. It's going to be somebody saying, yeah, I would like to get a heat pump and apply with that, the Juno group, or, there's two federal programs that are coming online. I mean, Juno's ACES program, they're looking at 100 or so heat pumps for Seward, if in fact we have people wanting to get into that. And they're geared for lower income. They're offering like $8,500 per lower income household, cash, basically upfront, done, to install a heat pump. Now it's just a question of, are our rates reasonable enough, or are they better off running their Toyo stove burning oil? For the middle income, it's, they're gonna have to come up with cash. So we gotta incentivize, them fronting the cash and making sure their rates are low enough to justify, competing with oil. So, yeah, lots of questions, I know.
Well, unfortunately, I maybe not have a full understanding of this, but I think a lot of the people who would be take advantage of the low-income program probably don't have the wherewithal to make the application on their own. It's kind of a unfortunate situation. But I don't know if there's a date specific that they'd have to apply, but I have an idea that it's gonna have to go, this rate adjustment is probably the only thing that we have, any control over.
Right, I agree.
And I am very confused, and unfortunately, I don't have my reading glasses with me, Phil, but this document you got, I'll look at some more. Still, the summer, winter, the combined average thing, and I've seen your reports, I've seen other people's reports, I've seen it in colored charts, and it sucks. You know,
But it all comes down to what's it cost to run the heat pump versus running your oil boiler or toil.
so give it the winter rate year-round.
Yeah, yeah.
Any questions? Okay, well, thank you, Phil. I think we have been around this. I'm not sure the next time we'll bring this up. I think I want to keep looking at this. I want to try to get something in front of council where they can make a consideration about whether, they've already said they don't want to do anything quickly, so any rate adjustment's not going to be until '25.
Well, and these, rebate programs are supposed to be kicking in sometime in 2025, so that's why I'm hoping if we can get something going, or at least some commitments, so people can be applying and getting on the list, because that free money doesn't last very long.
We need a heat pump fair. I'll put it in our lot next to the McMullen building. We'll have a heat pump fair. Okay. All right, so, no questions on the administration? You guys all heard this before? All right. So, informational items, yeah.
Get back on the record.
Thank you. Clerk, if we go back on the record?
Okay. And Chair Jaffa,
Yes.
now that we're on informational items and reports, I would like to mention something about the upcoming meetings whenever you're ready.
I'm ready.
So the next work session is scheduled for December 20th, 2024, but I would like to go into January for just a minute, and I have the calendar to show you up on the big screen here. So the first PACCAB meeting scheduled for January, that Wednesday, is in fact a city holiday. So I was hoping we could have a little bit of discussion on that and get some direction from the board about rescheduling it. And board member Atwood mentioned that Christy Terry was hoping to come down on the 15th to present.
Is the 15th intended to be a work session?
Well, it was intended to be a work session.
Can we make that the regular meeting?
That would work. Just make it a regular meeting.
What does the board think about that?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I have no disagreements, that's fine.
So she would have a presentation slot on the regular meeting agenda.
Yes. And we can give it more than the 10 minutes. So January 1st was a scheduled meeting?
Well, that's the first Wednesday of the month.
Rates in code. So I have a question.
Yeah.
You have December 20th, that's a Friday.
Yeah, that's my mistake. It should be the 18th.
Okay, that's a Friday,
Yeah.
so.
When is it?
Well, it's 18th, should be the 18th, but on this.
The 20th should be the 18th, yeah.
Okay. I will say that that's in December. I will be recovering from cataract surgery that day, so I won't be here.
Can I ask what's on the agenda for the work session for that day?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think the harbor master brought up, so because a lot of people are traveling, it's Christmas time, that maybe we should just not have that meeting on the 18th?
The 18th. So our next meeting would be in the middle of January, from now until this is the third of December today? Fourth, so that's a month away. And we're gonna have a busy meeting that day. Makes sense to me. Can we do that with
Yeah, so
That's a pretty,
just to
you don't need a vote on that, do you?
Just
Do you
to
have
confirm,
consensus?
the December 18th work session canceled, and then the January 15th work session will actually be a regular meeting with the presentation on there.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
we can do that.
Does that mean we will not have a work session in January? We'll just have our regular meeting?
Correct.
So at that meeting, we can also schedule one for maybe the 29th. So,
For the end of the month.
yeah, we can always schedule, we have to schedule the work session, the topic anyway, so.
Somewhere, we need to have our priorities for 2025. One of these meetings soon.
We just
So-
did that. We just have to approve it.
We have to approve it.
Yeah, so we can have it at the 15th meeting.
The 15th meeting, yeah, okay. Okay, and that makes sense to me. Okay, so that will complete our agenda items, and the clerk will note the calendar. And we go to citizen comments. Our council member has been with us the whole time. Thank you very much, Kathy. It harkens back to the days when Krista used to join us. Thank you. Okay, no other citizen comments, so we'll bring it back to the board for closing comments. Administration?
Yeah, I'll just say that I really appreciate Danny and Courtney. They've really been carrying the water. Every meeting I go to, they're at. Every function. They had an event at Tidewater Tap House, and then going to the Legion will be great. The only thing I'm disappointed in is Danny is contractually obligated to promote the city manager newsletter if he laments the loss of the paper, so just have to talk to him about that later.
Okay.
To add to Courtney's comment, I would strongly encourage everyone to go out and fill out that survey for the comp survey, and it's nice to see a full front row today. And thank you to Taylor coming to talk about metering. There's a lot of information there. We've talked on the side, and it's always a great conversation, and it's a lot to digest. Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, I want to thank the presentation on the comp plan. That was really good. Like I said, I think it was one of the times I was acting city manager, and the last time we did it, and there was a lot of things out there. So it was really nice, especially with the community support. I want to thank Phil lay down in the heat pump payback comparison is, it's someplace to start on something that council can look at in the future. And throw this out there. So tomorrow's a community Christmas party at CI Center. I believe it's 6 to 8. I believe so. So go down to CI Center, take your grandkids, kids down there. Santa's going to be there, handing out stuff, and they usually have some snacks and drinks and stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And everybody have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Board Member Sutter?
Yeah, just to kind of tag on to everybody else, I want to thank the presenters today. That was a good presentation and a good reminder about the surveys. I was thinking to myself that I didn't know anything about these surveys until he said, we sent everybody a postcard, and I was like, oh yeah, I did get one, so. But it's one of those things that you came in with all the political ads as well, so it's a good reminder to people that survey's out there. And then again, thanking both of you for speaking today on your subjects. It's a lot of this is very new information to me, and I appreciate the opportunity to learn about heat pumps and learn about the electrical meters and whatnot. I want to say to city administration that the city lights look wonderful. That's really, really pretty to come into town in the morning when it's dark and see those lights, and so that looks great. And then just a little plug for Seward Rotary is partnering with Parks and Rec to do Christmas or Breakfast with Santa on December 14th at the Senior Center, and the tickets are out there for anybody interested in bringing their little ones to see Santa. It's free for kids under a certain age. I don't remember what that age is, but it's just good to have the holidays stuff going on.
She brought that date up. Also on December 14th is the take your kids to the Legion, and they can ride the fire trucks through town in the parade, and then they can see Santa and give presents to the American Legion on, I believe it starts noonish. in the American Legion, but that's on that, the 14th after breakfast with Santa.
Yeah, Santa's making his rounds on the 14th.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Sam. And Dwayne.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, I guess I'll just echo what everybody else is saying here. I think the Community Development Department duo, the director and planner, I think they're doing a great job, and as evidenced by the presentation today. And I like the approach to the comprehensive plan update, and I'd like to thank the clerk too for being proactive. This important Commerce Advisory Board draft, I'll be looking at that. Some things to consider. I guess one thought that occurred to me is I believe historically, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason we have this seasonal hiatus is because we have folks who might represent industries that are particularly busy in the summer months. I don't know if that still applies, but I guess we'll all provide our comments anyway. And then thank the gentleman for providing a lot of information about metering and power. And happy holiday to those who I probably may see or may not see before we convene again. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope we get to see each other through the holiday seasons. First I would report that the ad hoc heat loop committee, which was a subset of PACAB, council determined that it was going to twilight. It was due to twilight in December, and council decided to let it go. And their comments were that should it be needed, it can be reinstituted. And as a member of that ad hoc committee, I will say that there was a lot of work by a lot of people that went into it over a year and a half, and although it was a disappointing end, it's not the total end of the road for it. There is reason. The administration is looking at what they call scalable options through some grant money to possibly, well, not possibly, but to continue investigation of the viability of the heat loop to heat the library. The clerk, because we're not going to have a meeting for another month, I would suggest that comments that you have on the code changes, if you could send them by letter to the clerk for review and possible consideration. I think it makes sense. I'm not exactly sure the schedule for this. I listened a little earlier, but I think it'd still be a benefit to get your comments to them. The administration, the comprehensive plan, I think the administration and both our manager and assistant manager have a good background in community planning and understanding how the community works, and Ashley is our liaison facilitating the presentation of was it Danny and Courtney. I thought that was an excellent presentation. Opens up huge avenues of discussion. I also like to thank Taylor and Phil for coming in. You know, this is not done. You know, one of the things I think that we've talked about is how to make heating affordable in town, but also how to make electricity affordable in town. So those two things are ongoing discussions, and along with clever uses of current technology and possibly new technology that's kind of peeking out behind the curtain. You know, and you can look at it every day. I just related to somebody a story about geothermal energy, only they're not stopping at you know, ground source at 300 feet. They're going deep, and they're looking to extract heat from the core of the earth. And a lot of this is a factor of the benefit of material improvements. And I could go on and on and on about what the obstacles are to certain kinds of energy, and almost all of them come down to material technology. As things improve, batteries improve, drill heads improve. Anyway, that's enough of that. Thank you for letting me get off topic, or on topic, and if there's no objection, call for,
Chair Drove, I have something I need to add.
Please.
That I should have added, Jesse Groom is excused from today's meeting. He did tell me last meeting and the meeting before that he would not be here, so I just wanted to make sure.
oh, thank
that
you,
was on the
thank you.
record.
Yeah, and while we're on that, the clerk reminded me, we do have an open position, and if you know someone who would like to serve on this is a great opportunity to participate in city government and policy, public policy. And I think we need to find more people who are engaged. And to Board Member Atwood's comment, it was a great number of people who were in the fishing industry who chose to ply their trade in the summer. And that was a good part of why people were not here, not available in the summer. Okay, call for a motion to adjourn?
Call the motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Any opposed? So moved, we're adjourned.